Welcome back to Archie Spencer FX. So today I'm going to be explaining how the global economy actually works, because I don't think many people really understand how it works, how it operates, and what actually goes on inside of the global economy. So be patient, wait with me, watch through this video, and hopefully by the end of it you'll have a much better understanding of what actually is the global economy. An economy, to put it very simply, is people just buying things, making things, and selling things, right? So we have GDP. GDP basically represents everything that was manufactured within the country in that given period, whether that be a month or whether that be a year. So in the UK, the total value of everything produced inside of the UK comes to around 3 trillion. Now, to put that into perspective, the US is around 28 trillion. So it is way, way, way bigger, very close to being 10 times bigger. Their economy is nearly 10 times bigger than the size of the UK. Now, that gap has got bigger because the US are progressing and the UK, well, we're just going backwards, I think, at this point, to be honest with you. So an analogy I like to use to represent the global economy. So your body is like the economy. The GDP is like your heart rate. Obviously, that goes up and it goes down and it's constantly changing. And then the central banks are the doctor. The doctor's the one who's got the control over the body and is able to change things to make things better, make things worse, whatever it wants to do. The doctor's got the capability of doing that. Now, in terms of money, the central banks have exactly this control. They can control taxes, they can control stimulus. They've got lots of different tools which they can use in order to boost or to shrink the economy, to do whatever is necessary to keep everything running on as smooth a path as possible. Now, the day-to-day person doesn't even realize that the central banks are doing this, but there is always different things going on which are constantly changing how the economy is working, how efficient it is, and making things so that the everyday person can live the best life possible, right? This is what the central bank's job is to do. So GDP as a figure on its own doesn't necessarily mean too much. It doesn't have too much of an impact. What you're looking for is it to be above zero so that it's in growth. If it's below zero, then that's when the economy is shrinking and you come into recession territory. 2 negative GDP figures, 2 consecutive months in a row, that is the definition of a recession. So you want it to always be above zero, and in an ideal world, you want it to keep rising. You don't want it to overheat, it can get too high, but that varies depending on each specific economy around the world. Then we move on to inflation. So inflation is the rate at which prices are rising. So in the US at the moment, it's 3.8. Now, for those of you that don't know, the target is between 2 and 3%. Reason being that wages tend to rise year on year around the 2 to 3% mark. So they want inflation to stay in line with what the paychecks are going up by. So when you think you're getting this beautiful extra pay package of 2%, you're not getting anything extra. You're just getting the same money that you had before, but it looks bigger because it's a bigger number. But in reality, it's going to buy you exactly the same amount. So the next time your boss offers you a 2% rise, say, I don't want that, I want 4%. Well, 4% at the moment is going to keep you about in line with inflation, so you're still not gaining anything extra. With it at 3.8, it has to be above 3.8 for you to actually be benefiting from it. Otherwise, you literally have got the same money that you had before. So it's not your boss's fault. Your boss isn't in control of inflation. He can't do anything about that. But just keep that in mind next time you get a little 3% pay package. It doesn't mean anything. You're just getting the same money you had before. Just the price of your milk, the price of your bread, the price of your eggs, your clothes, your petrol, whatever it is, all of those have risen by roughly 3.8%. Now, if we talk about petrol, I won't get into that now with the war going on now, that's risen significantly. But that's the aim. They want to try and keep inflation between 2 and 3% so it stays in line with the amount that your wages are increasing by. So the big drivers of inflation, we've got a huge one at the moment, and that is oil. Oil prices really do drive the inflation markets because everything comes from oil. It doesn't matter if it's this camera that I'm recording on now, the computer that I use next to me, the clothes that I'm wearing, all of it, everything on this planet almost involves some form of oil. Even the plants that grow out the ground, yes, you don't need oil to grow it, that's definitely not going to help it, but how do you think that plant then gets from A to B for you to be able to eat it? Through a truck, through some sort of delivery system, and that needs oil. So now with the Strait of Hormuz being closed, this has put a huge strainer on inflation. Like, inflation is going through the roof very, very quickly at the moment because of the price of oil. The price of oil has risen, so everything has to rise. Absolutely everything goes up. Another one, we've got events like COVID, right? COVID caused huge issues with people not being able to work. And people not being able to work means deliveries can't happen, which means deliveries become more expensive because they come like an exclusive thing. Nonsense. But that will drive inflation. That pushes inflation up. So there's lots of different events. Pretty much everything has some effect on inflation, right? So you have to pay attention to that. And as a trader, that's how you can manipulate the market. Well, not manipulate, but make the most out of the market, is by understanding these different drivers of inflation. So one of the main tools that the central banks have got to control inflation is interest rates. If they hike interest rates, that makes it more expensive to borrow money, which slows down the economy, which in turn reduces inflation. If they cut interest rates, that means that the economy is now able to borrow for cheaper. The everyday person can borrow for cheaper, businesses can borrow for cheaper, which means more people get employed, which means more people are spending money, and more people spending money is exactly what drives inflation, right? So that's the biggest one. And then they've also got stimulus packages. So when they change interest rates, this takes a bit of a process. This isn't an overnight thing where money gets spent instantly, because it can take months for that to actually start hitting people's pockets and them noticing that they've got more money to spend and that they can borrow money for cheaper. How they do it if they want to do it overnight and make it very quickly is they go to the people which don't work and the ones which aren't spending money and the ones which are taking money from taxes and what have you through different forms of benefits, through PIP, through your everyday benefits if you're not working, for job seekers allowance, whatever the benefit may be. And they go, right, here's a lump sum of say $1,000, go and spend it. And that generates a flow of cash, which can then in turn raise inflation. Another thing they did, I don't know if you had this in other countries, but in England, we had the Eat Out to Help Out back when COVID just finished. So they did like a 50% off during the week for people to go out and eat food. And what this did was basically just boost the economy. Everyone was like, oh wow, this is amazing. We can go out and eat food for 50% off, which boosts and drives inflation because people are there going out and spending money on food where normally they would have been at home watching TV, playing the Xbox, whatever it is. So they managed to boost the economy and get money flowing again. And that was exactly what they needed because inflation was very low during those times. And then you've got the people which control the money. This is the central bank. So you've got the BOE, the Bank of England, the BOA, the Bank of America. You've got the RBA, the Republic Bank of Australia, the RBNZ, the Republic Bank of New Zealand, the BOJ, the Bank of Japan. All of these are the central banks. These guys are the ones which are out on the big private yachts that you've never heard of before, which sit there laying in the sun, having a great time, flying around in helicopters to different meetings, and have got enough money to air condition hell, right? These guys are like top of the tree. You just don't know who they are. They're like completely unseen, the people which are running the show there. So their job is to control the money, like the stimulus packages, which I was just talking about. That would be down to the central banks. The central banks are the ones that control that. They're also, when you're trading the markets, who you're trading against. If you win money, you're taking money out of the central bank. If you lose money, your money is going to the central bank. So you can imagine with, 70 to 80% of traders lose money. They love the retail traders. They absolutely love us because most cannot beat the market. So the central bank constantly raking more money in from movements like this. So the way that everything intertwines all together, so you start with growth in the economy. When growth hits the economy, people start spending. When people start spending, inflation rises. When inflation rises too much, people stop spending. When people stop spending, then inflation comes down. When inflation comes down, you have to start cutting rates to get people spending again. And this loop just constantly rotates round and round and round and round and round because there's always different things going on in the world. So really it all comes down to rates. Rates are like the number one thing. As traders, that's what we're looking at. As soon as there's a change in a rate decision, or there's a hawkish or a dovish stance where we might get a bit of an indication of rate hikes or rate cuts, that's when we see the real moves, especially in the currency markets. So this is what every trader is looking out for. And if you're not looking out for this, then you need to be. Now, this loops back to fundamentals and technical trading, as it always does. You have to understand the fundamentals. If you don't understand the fundamentals, your technicals will not hold up. So you've got to understand both parts of the puzzle. Don't just be a technical trader, be a technical and fundamental trader so you get the full round picture. Now, if you don't understand how to do fundamentals, and there's no good education online, I've already looked, I've been through it and it's all crap. If you want good education, then join my free trading community, which will be in the description down below, the Grit Trading Academy, and I will guide you through how to do fundamental analysis. I post every single day about the major events which are going on and how this is going to affect the market. And then if you would like, you can move into the paid program where we really go into details of how the macroeconomics, how the geopolitical tensions can really shift the market. I do teach technicals in there, but the fundamentals, that's where the big money is. So that is what I recommend you go and study. Now, if you've enjoyed the video, please hit the subscribe button down below, give it a like, and drop a comment for what you want the next video to be.